The first blow fell on the colony world of Vesta Prime, a jagged crescent of terraformed rock orbiting the edge of the Trosian expanse. Humanity had only begun to spread its wings among the stars, with fragile chains of outposts and settlements dotting the fringe of galactic civilization. Vesta Prime wasn't a military hub, it wasn't even a strategic asset, it was a symbol, our first independent colony beyond the bounds of Sol, and that made it a target. They arrived without warning. Ships unlike anything Earth's defense coalition had ever encountered dropped out of subspace, their forms shifting like metal folded through time. No signals, no hails, just the deathlight of plasma bombardment. Cities vanished under oceans of fire. Orbital stations were sliced apart by energy ribbons that disassembled matter at the molecular level. And from the ruins came the message. Return to your cradle, this territory has been quarantined. Violation of Trispecies Accords mandates elimination. You are trespassers in sovereign Cathari space. At first, no one believed it. Earth had heard whispers of alien life, but only in deep, scrambled telemetry and rogue exosignatures. We weren't part of the great galactic dialogue. We had never even been invited, but the Cathari did not debate, they purged. The transmission was signed by High General Varkta, a name that would be seared into the Terran psyche for generations. The United Nations of Earth collapsed into uproar. News channels screamed with fear and outrage. Vesta's last surviving drone feeds showed fire raining from the heavens and entire cities erased in seconds. But something else surfaced too, something quieter. Resolve. A summit was called aboard the Odysseus, the largest interstellar carrier Earth had ever built. Its halls still smelled of polymer weld and recycled steel. It had never seen combat. Around a rough round table of alloy and glass, admirals, tacticians, and leaders met with one face that stood apart from the rest. Major General Elias Cade. He was a soldier out of time. Raised in dust-worn deserts during the collapse of the Eurasian food grids, he'd led post-collapse pacification units before transitioning into orbital command. He had fought in 23 known conflict zones, from frozen lunar sieges to the technocratic rebellions on Ganymede. His eyes were steel, not metaphorically. He had lost them in the Istanbul flash and had them rebuilt in a lab. Cade didn't speak much, but when he did, the room listened. They didn't attack a military post. They hit a colony. They didn't demand surrender. They gave us extinction. That tells us something. They don't want negotiation. They want obedience. Someone, a political liaison from Europa, responded weakly, "We can't win this. We're still developing exofusion drives. Our ships don't even have real subspace shielding yet. We're a decade away from parity." Cade didn't blink. "Then we adapt faster than they can predict." The room fell silent. That was the moment the resistance was born, not a formal declaration, but the collective decision that humanity would not crawl back into Sol. It began with the analysis of the Cathari attack. Engineers pored over fragmented sensor data, mapping weapon trajectories, energy readings, even the wake distortions of their ships. Human minds, unbound by alien doctrine, began to do what they did best: break rules, hack physics, redefine limitations. Within 6 months, the Odysseus had undergone its first refit. Jagged kinetic lance batteries welded onto her flanks, power conduits rerouted to allow overcharging in exchange for structural stress. She was no longer a diplomatic cruiser, she was warborn. But that wasn't enough. Cade knew what was coming. Varkta was not finished. He had tested the prey and now expected retreat. That expectation was their opening. And then came Jericho Burn. A second colony, newly built on the sulfur-rich plains of Jericho's Eye, was evacuated in secret. Its reactors were reprogrammed to detonate in sequence. When the Cathari arrived to repeat their purge, they found silence. No humans, no ships, just automated mining rigs humming quietly under the ash winds. They descended. The detonation was initiated when the first Cathari scout walked through the central processor chamber. The explosion wasn't nuclear, it was gravimetric, a ripple forced through folded spacetime that turned their lead dreadnought into a neutron smear. 2 Cathari ships were caught in the pulse. One was torn inside out, the other vanished completely. It wasn't a victory, it was a statement. That same day, Cade sent an encrypted response through the same channel Varkta had used to broadcast Earth's death sentence. His face was calm, voice low. "You said we face certain death, then we'll make it costly." The message reverberated through galactic subspace. The Cathari weren't used to prey speaking back, especially not like this. In response, the Cathari War Council declared humanity a Level 3 containment priority. That term hadn't been used since the Slithan Uprising, an event that had shattered 3 star systems and nearly crippled the Cathari home armada. Now it was Earth's turn. Cade was given full operational command. The Earth Defense Coalition officially restructured into the Terran Strategic Command. Resources were consolidated, civilian industries were militarized, humanity began forging not just ships but doctrine. Unlike the Cathari, we didn't have centuries of rigid combat philosophy. We didn't believe in sacred tactics. We didn't treat warfare like ceremony. We treated it like a problem to solve. We built ships with jagged hulls and modular sections that could be rebuilt in weeks, not years. We deployed decoy fleets, falsified subspace trails, deployed AI-generated comms to simulate fleets in 6 different systems at once. Cathari generals called it dishonorable. Cade called it asymmetric logic. He knew they were watching, studying, underestimating. And so he let them. Let them think Jericho was a fluke. Let them think Earth would crumble after Vesta. They had not yet seen Earth's real weapon. Not the Odysseus, not the kinetic lances or grav-pulse mines. But human will. Because Cade understood something Varkta didn't. The Cathari fought to preserve. Humans fought because there was nothing else left but the fight. And in that crucible, a species changes. Earth wasn't retreating. It was becoming something new. The Cathari response came swift and overwhelming. They called it Directive Vihar, a term ripped from the old military archives of the Trispecies Accord. It authorized total suppression, not just planetary sterilization, but subspace interdiction, cultural erasure, and psychological warfare on a scale humanity had no precedent for. Within 3 weeks, Cathari skirmish fleets entered Terran proximity. 11 human outposts were destroyed before they could raise shields. Communications relays were flooded with distortion. Orbital defense grids flickered, then died. On the edge of the Uit line, sensor buoys reported glimpses of monolithic structures moving beyond the light horizon, warforms the size of moons. But humanity no longer waited for death. They learned. Cade established the Black Spire Initiative, an interlinked network of mobile command stations buried beneath asteroid crusts and ice moons. The idea was simple: never present a single point of failure. Let Earth burn and the command lives on. Let the fleet fall and orders will still come. One such spire was hidden in the fractured asteroid belt of Delta Eridani. There, in a labyrinth of black glass corridors, Cade stood with Commander Naira Vance, an exobiologist-turned-tactician whose grasp of alien psychology was unsettlingly accurate. "They don't expect resistance from something this disorganized," she said, pointing at a live holomap of Cathari fleet deployments. "They expect collapse because that's what they're used to. When they strike, civilizations kneel, not because of firepower, because of fear." Cade narrowed his gaze. "Then we give them something else to fear." That something else began at the Battle of Lysithea Verge. Lysithea was a gas giant moon once considered useless for habitation. Now it was a trap. Using falsified comms and drone fleet signatures, Cade's tacticians staged the illusion of a large civilian evacuation. As expected, a Cathari annihilation wing dropped from subspace, 12 warships, 3 command barges, and a Rift Hammer dreadnought. Waiting for them were no refugees. Instead, the moon's crust detonated outward, releasing a swarm of magnetized ferromine clouds, thousands of sensor ghosts and projectile cores spinning at relativistic speeds. Shields failed instantly. The hammer was crippled before it could charge. Out of Lysithea's shadow came Terran strike frigates equipped with prototype subspace puncture arrays, stolen technology reverse-engineered from debris recovered near Jericho. The Cathari ships didn't just die, they disappeared. It took days before Cathari command acknowledged the loss. They issued no retraction, no admission. To them, the war was still procedural, ordered, inevitable. But murmurs began to rise. In the Jankar subclades, where Cathari officers trained for orbital sieges, instructors began referencing human tactics with irritation. They called them chaotic, improvisational, beneath analysis. In the Talnex Thought Hall, Varkta convened a closed-circuit summit with his war council. "We warned them," he said, his voice like stone dragged over metal. "They were given the mercy of surrender. They refused." One of the advisors, a scar-worn strategos named Halvren, raised his voice. "Then why do we bleed? Why are our hulls cracked open by scrap fleets and mining torpedoes? Why do they not fall as others have?" Varkta turned toward the projection of Earth's orbital ring. "Because they are not driven by conquest, they are driven by extinction. They fight with the mind of the desperate, and desperation is harder to kill than doctrine." Back on Earth, desperation had taken the form of innovation. The Terran Forge rings, hastily constructed orbital platforms designed for mass fabrication, had begun churning out drone swarms and modular weapons platforms around the clock. Humanity had done what it always did when trapped. It industrialized the trap. No battle was clean, no tactic was sacred. Engineers wired solar flares into pulse cannons. Pilots slingshotted corvettes around dying stars to gain kinetic velocity. Prisoners were promised amnesty for volunteering in cyberneural rig simulations used to test experimental weapons in real time against AI Cathari models. Each death taught something, each loss revealed a fracture. Cade compiled it all. And then came Echelon Wake, a former data archive moon used by the Cathari for long-range intel processing. Echelon Wake wasn't defended. Why would it be? It was 30,000 light-years from known conflict zones. But Cade had found it. Not through maps, through intercepted memory code from captured Cathari neural cores, another first. No other species had dared integrate alien organic processing into their command systems. Humanity had done it in 7 months. The raid lasted 22 minutes. 12 Terran assault frigates translated in and out of subspace in staccato intervals, never staying in phase for more than 90 seconds. Cathari auto-turrets failed to lock. The command core was seized, its data matrix spliced into onboard Terran processors and transmitted back through a dark relay. The information was priceless. Fleet paths, supply chains, psychological warfare scripts, weak points in Cathari civic order, civilian unrest protocols. Suddenly Cade saw the shape of the Empire, not just the front, the heart. And he smiled. Now we bleed them. Within weeks, uprisings began to stir on Cathari-subjugated worlds, not by human agents, but by populations watching transmissions smuggled through subspace from Earth's hidden relays. Footage of Vesta's destruction alongside footage of Cade's message. You said we face certain death, then we'll make it costly. It echoed in mining tunnels, in orbital labor farms, in broken places where the Cathari had ruled through fear. And the Cathari began to realize the war was no longer one of extermination. It was one of influence. Varkta, furious, ordered the deployment of the Veiljan, a second-generation fleet-mined carrier designed to disrupt cognitive networks and simulate entire battles within enemy neural systems before they even occurred. It arrived at the Centauri Gate, where Earth had deployed its last conventional fleet. But the Veiljan found nothing. No ships, no heat signatures, only silence. And then, one by one, its systems began to die. Lights dimmed, subroutines failed, and through the dark came a single message burned onto every command screen in Terran binary. We are not where you expect, we are where you fear. Then the reactor detonated. It wasn't a nuke, it was worse. A gravimetric slingshot implosion that sent the Veiljan hurtling back through subspace, half-phased, tearing its own fleet apart as it fell. In its wake, Cade stood aboard the Odysseus, now retrofitted again, sleeker, darker, her hull laced with alien alloys and plasma-laced armor plating. He turned to Naira. They'll come again in force with everything. Naira nodded. And when they do. Cade looked toward the dark of space, where Cathari ships were beginning to realign. Then we give them a new rule to remember, that Earth may die, but it never dies quietly. The Cathari High Conclave declared the Terran insurgency a cascade threat. The term had not been used since the Krell reforms, during the ancient wars where entire sectors vanished under recursive entropy, but Earth had earned it. The war was no longer about punishment, it had become about control. The Cathari Empire, built on the presumption of unshakable authority, now faced an adversary that did not just resist, it infected. Every Terran broadcast, every false comms trail, every battlefield where human ships burned but dragged Cathari vessels into the abyss with them, each one corroded the illusion of inevitability that held their dominion intact. And the infection was spreading. On the subjugated world of Threnval, Cathari enforcers arrived to quell a minor labor riot. They found instead a city barricaded with makeshift defenses and civilians chanting a name they should not have known, Cade. On the mining moons of the Helix Reach, Cathari patrols discovered entire facilities abandoned, their AI cores overridden with Earth's command dialect, broadcasting looped footage of Jericho's trap. Varkta convened an emergency war council aboard the Tomblight, his flagship and symbol of Cathari military supremacy. Its interior was forged from hulls taken during the Core Ascendancy Wars, its command chamber a cathedral of victory. He was not accustomed to silence in that place, but now his generals stood muted. Strategos Halvren broke the tension. They are fewer, we crush dozens of their fleets, and yet they rise, they persist. Why? Varkta answered without turning. Because they are not fighting for territory or for survival, they are fighting to be remembered. He activated a holostream across the chamber, intercepted footage from Earth. A war council inside a battered asteroid base. A half-blind engineer detailing a new torpedo matrix that overloaded enemy AI by mimicking civilian cry codes. A pilot with a shattered jaw flying her ship manually through a debris field to deliver a single charge into a Cathari carrier's heart. A group of children, faces streaked with ash, learning to rebuild drone guidance systems from wreckage. Each image struck harder than any fleet engagement. We do not understand them, Varkta said, because they were not bred for obedience. They rise because they refuse the idea of falling. Back in Terran space, the war entered a new phase. It was Cade's design, though he never took credit. Instead, he stood aboard the Odysseus, speaking quietly into neural command threads shared with every fleet leader, every spire, every outpost. The Cathari believe we can't change the board. That war has rules, break them, change everything. Thus began Operation Glass Ghost. Its first manifestation was the Skyfall Wraiths, human drop units surgically enhanced to survive atmospheric re-entry without heat shielding, dropped onto Cathari mobile fortresses mid-orbit. They did not fight like soldiers. They moved like shadows, disabling reactor links, fracturing supply chains, reprogramming navigation charts mid-flight to send entire fortresses spiraling into stars. Then came the Mimir engines, quantum cognition matrices built from salvaged Cathari thought chips fused with Terran logic cores. The engines predicted not movement, but intent. They fed real-time combat adjustments to Terran squadrons, allowing pilots to shift formation seconds before the Cathari fired. Humanity had become an organism with 1,000 eyes and a single, adaptive mind. For every Cathari dreadnought deployed, a Terran deep spire appeared behind their lines. For every garrison established, the civilians disappeared before impact, taking everything of value with them and leaving behind message beacons broadcasting Cade's first words again and again. Then we'll make it costly. The phrase had become a curse among Cathari youth. A whisper passed between commanders during pre-engagement simulations. A psychological imprint so deep, their thought priests began recommending it be erased from sanctioned war records. But it was too late. The Cathari Empire had not expected resistance. It had expected compliance. It had not prepared for a species that made war into a language and taught it to everyone who could stand. And now Earth had allies. Not formal treaties, not armies, but whispers. In the shattered Dyson ruins of Karvath 6, scavenger collectives began selling intel to Terran agents. In the gas colonies of the Varn Drift, Cathari logistics networks were disrupted by anonymous cyberplagues with Terran code signatures. A message spread untraceable. Earth fights, so can you. Meanwhile, Cade stood on the bridge of the Odysseus, no longer Earth's largest ship but its most dangerous. Its systems were unorthodox, unpredictable, and illegal by galactic standards. The admiral who approached him now, Colonel Rashid Akhtar, was once a Mars-born dissident. Now he commanded Strike Wing Echo, responsible for dismantling 6 Cathari refineries. He saluted. New data from the captured relay on Caldron 3. Varkta is moving. Cade stepped to the display. The Cathari fleet formations were converging, not hunting, consolidating. They're preparing for an endgame, Akhtar said. Cade's jaw clenched. Good. He tapped a command node, the display shifted to Earth, still scorched, still healing, but alive. It's time we remind them we were never asking to live, we were promising to make death expensive. He turned to Akhtar. Contact the spires, activate Protocol Hydra. Akhtar blinked. All of them. 12 hidden commands, 12 simultaneous assaults. Each one aimed not at Cathari strength, but at their beliefs. The Cathari core worlds were soon to know the one truth they had denied. That humans, once pushed past fear, become something else entirely. And the cost, long predicted, was about to come due. Protocol Hydra launched in silence. 12 simultaneous strikes, not against fleets, not against frontlines, but against myth, against the spiritual and psychological scaffolding of Cathari rule. Humanity had learned that to fight a species like the Cathari, you didn't just challenge their armies, you dismantled their certainty, that they were superior, that their dominance was ordained, that resistance was always, eventually, futile. The first blow landed on Trivar IX, a ceremonial archive moon containing the scrolls of victory, etched crystalline histories detailing every Cathari conquest over the last 6,000 cycles. It was unarmed, guarded only by tradition and reverence. Strike Team and Burfall descended in suits laced with M-Ghost matrices invisible to sensors. They didn't destroy the archive, that would have been too clean. Instead, they inverted the record, inserted new entries. Terran victories rendered in Cathari prose, illustrated in honor-marked glyphs, signed with Varkta's war seal, copied from a neural echo harvested 2 months prior. By the time the Conclave discovered the breach, every major broadcast node in Cathari space had already disseminated the corrupted texts. Thousands of younger warriors began to question which victories were real. The second strike was worse. Yurn-Kadish, a Cathari spiritual retreat world where high strategists underwent meditation rituals to enhance battle foresight, was targeted not by bombs but by language. A viral philosophy algorithm, codenamed Cassandra, written by Terran philosopher engineers and seeded through ancient harmonics embedded in Cathari chant frequencies, was uploaded via satellite hijack. In less than a week, every thought cleric who engaged in the rite of continuity began to experience recursion breakdowns, loops of doubt, existential tremors. Several suicided mid-ritual. By Cathari standards, this was a desecration on the scale of planetary genocide. And yet not a single shot had been fired. Cade watched the fallout unfold from his spire aboard Cerberus Deep, orbiting a dead star in the ghost systems beyond the Traverse. A map rotated before him. Glitches bloomed across Cathari sectors like spreading rust. They weren't just losing systems. They were losing control. Commander Naira Vance entered, a fresh data shard in her hand. Her voice, as always, was steady. We've confirmed contact with 3 separate resistance cells within Cathari core space. None of them are human. Cade turned, his eye implants focused with a click. Then the myth is broken. Naira gave a rare smile. They thought they were suppressing a rebellion. Now they're trying to hold together an empire coming apart at the seams. Meanwhile, Cathari Prime, their homeworld, saw something it had not witnessed in 5,000 cycles. A military recall order. Varkta returned not in triumph, in silence. His flagship, the Tomblight, arrived bearing scars from a failed strike near the Saturn Gate, where human decoy fleets led his formation into a supernova shockwave and crippled 2 of his carriers. He had not spoken publicly in 12 cycles. But now he stood before the conclave, ringed by ancient minds, warriors born in gravity wells so dense their bones had fused in infancy. His armor, once flawless obsidian, bore hairline fractures where Terran plasma had licked too close. We misjudged, he said. We believed Earth was a flicker, it is not. One of the Elder Lords hissed, then extinguish it. Varkta shook his head. Fires can be extinguished, but not storms. This is no longer a battle. It is erosion, and it is spreading from the humans into us. Back in Terran space, Operation Hydra reached its final movement. Zurath's Halo, a Cathari memory sanctuary orbiting a gravity lens, stored ancestral imprints of every Cathari warrior to die in service. It was sacrosanct, a place of mourning and identity. Terran agents didn't destroy it. They redirected it. Using hijacked lens protocols, they laced the memory imprints with Terran echoes. The screams of Jericho, the fire of Vesta, Cade's defiant transmission translated, embedded, woven into Cathari battle hymns. Now, when Cathari soldiers connected to the ancestral stream for guidance, they heard not the chants of unity, but the human voice. Then we'll make it costly. The fracture was complete. Across 100 systems, Cathari fleet cohesion faltered. Civil disobedience, once unthinkable, ignited on outer worlds. The Empire issued internal lockdown orders, but it was too late. On the Odysseus, now accompanied by 3 Terran-built dreadnoughts and a swarm of semi-autonomous skirmishers, Cade received the intercept. A message from Varkta, first communication since Vesta. He played it alone. The Cathari general appeared, his voice hollow. You have burned more than ships, you have infected the future. You offer us a war that has no end. Cade responded with no theatrics, no bravado. This was never about winning, it was about ending the silence. Varkta paused, then offered a single phrase that would rattle every Terran system it touched. Then meet us at the Shard Crucible. Let us see if the price you promised is worth paying. Cade stared long at the message. Naira entered behind him, reading his expression. Is it a trap? He nodded once. Absolutely. Then why go? Cade turned, in his eyes was no hatred, only fire. Because the galaxy is watching, and if we don't stand there, if we don't make them feel every life they tried to erase, then everything we've done becomes noise. He opened a comm line to all Terran fleets. All units, we make for the Shard Crucible, leave nothing behind. If this is our end, we make it loud. The Shard Crucible was unlike any battlefield the war had seen. A structure of pure gravitic geometry suspended between four dying stars, it had once been the site of a long-forgotten civil war among the Trispecies Accord. The Cathari had repurposed it over the centuries into a proving ground for high command, a place where legends rose and challengers fell. Its arena was the size of a small moon, its layered rings shifting in orbit like armor plates across a living creature. It was here that Cade would make humanity's final answer. The Odysseus emerged from fold space first, wrapped in its obsidian shard armor, her spine glowing with reactor bleed. Behind her came the entire strength of the Terran Strategic Command, 37 combat vessels patched together from wreckage, retrofitted with alien alloys born of desperation and raw fury. No shields, no ceremony, only readiness. Across the void, the Tomblight awaited, surrounded by 3 Cathari armadas. A lattice of fleet mines and interlocking command cruisers formed a defensive web designed to intercept anything Cade could throw. On the Crucible's central dais, flanked by memory obelisks, stood Varkta, alone. He spoke into the void, his voice amplified across open channels. General Cade, this ends now. One world's defiance has burned through 1,000 years of order. We meet here in open reckoning. Submit, and your species may survive in remembrance, persist, and extinction is assured. Cade responded from the Odysseus bridge, calm and direct. You never understood us, you thought we feared extinction, we feared never mattering, now we do, so you're right, this ends now. Then he gave the final command, begin Exodus pattern. What happened next shattered the definition of battle. Terran vessels didn't attack the Cathari lines head-on. Instead, they executed the Exodus pattern, a maneuver Cade had kept in development for over a year, unknown even to his senior tacticians. Each Terran ship split its command core into autonomous cells. Each became a decoy, a trap, a weapon. They inverted formations, dived through microgravity tiers, used the Crucible's gravity lensing to fire kinetic projectiles at fractional light velocities, impossible to predict or intercept. Cathari fleet formations began to crumble within the first 6 minutes. But the Odysseus didn't engage. It dropped below the battlefield out of sensor range and initiated an ancient docking sequence with the Crucible's underlayers coded into its shell from stolen Accord blueprints. Cade and Naira boarded with a single strike team, clad in field reactive armor stitched with Cathari neural mapping. Their objective wasn't tactical, it was symbolic. They would plant Earth's mark into the Crucible's core, not as a declaration of victory but as inheritance. As the Cathari command net buckled, Varkta broke from formation, descending onto the Crucible in a personal drop cradle of black steel and fire. He landed atop the upper spire as Cade emerged below. They met at the central node. No guards, no armies, just 2 generals who had carried entire species into the fire. Cade stood firm. Varkta spoke first. You fight with ghosts, with broken ships and stolen weapons, and yet your people believe this matters. Why? Cade's voice was low. Because belief is what outlasts war. Yours was built on fear, ours on the refusal to disappear. The Cathari general studied him. Even now you know the odds. I know them better than you do, Cade said. I've watched them burn into the backs of every soldier I've sent to die, and I still chose to come here. Then you are mad. No, Cade said, stepping forward, placing a data spear into the Crucible's core node. I'm human. The moment the spear activated, the Crucible flared to life. Not in fire, in memory. The surrounding rings began to project every major battle of the war. Vesta, Jericho, Lysithea, Echelon Wake, but this time the narrative was inverted. Humanity was not the trespasser. They were the flame, the answer, the variable. Cathari fleets paused as their own war screens flooded with rewritten history. On subjugated worlds, the Crucible's signal broke through the suppression nets. Billions watched the unthinkable, a Terran standing atop the Empire's holiest ground, rewriting the end. Back on the Tomblight, Cathari fleet-mind consensus fractured. Half the command ships began retreating, not in cowardice but in crisis. Their enemy had taken not territory but myth. Vargta stepped forward. "You desecrate this place." Cade met his eyes. "I made it honest." Then Vargta raised his warblade. They fought not like duelists, like civilizations colliding. Vargta moved with centuries of refined Cathari martial perfection. Cade fought like earth, raw, vicious, unpredictable. Every movement was a trick, every opening a lie. They each bled, then they both fell. But Cade stood again. He didn't deliver a killing blow, he offered silence. Vargta, breathing heavily, lowered his blade. "What now?" Cade looked to the Crucible, now glowing with both Cathari and Terran code. "Now the galaxy sees us and decides." When the Terran fleet withdrew, the Crucible remained behind, orbiting in eternal rotation between the four stars. A monument. Not to conquest, but to resistance. The war didn't end that day, but something greater began. On Cathari homeworlds, reformists rose. On fringe worlds, alliances formed. Earth, once silent among the stars, now sat at the center of a storm it had forged with blood and will. And whenever a Cathari war priest began the old chant of certainty, someone, somewhere, would whisper the words that had cracked the Empire. "Then we'll make it costly."